thank you so much for taking time to watch my video. My video for today is based on the book by Andrew Chatora, which is called Where the Heart Is. So Where the Heart Is actually his second novel, and to introduce the author, Andrew Chatora writes novels and short stories and hails from Zimbabwe. He received an MA in Media, Culture and Communication from UCL. His writing explores multifarious themes of belonging, identity politics, citizenship and nationhood issues. Where the Heart Is his second novel following his highly successful debut novella, Diaspora Dreams, which was actually nominated for the NAMA 2022 under the Outstanding First Creative Published Work category. And Andrew is principally interested in the global politics of inequality, which he interrogates through his writing. When he's not writing, he's working on his PhD thesis on digital piracy with Birmingham City University School of Media and English. So to give you guys the synopsis of the book, it's based on the life of Fari Mupawaenda, and his life cannot be complete without quitting the back-breaking struggle of surviving in the UK and returning to the laid-back streets of warm Harare. But does it make sense for him to want to return to the periphery once more? The man who returns, why does he return? What does he return? His wife, a zealous cosmopolitan, the daughter, a conflicted bed-hopping undergraduate, and the son, a budding homosexual, will not follow Fari in his trip to what they see as the back of beyond. They have decided to invest fully where they are. Fari's reverse trip is a story about the human body, a tight memory test, and a duel between geography and anticipation. Masterful in style and form and narrative in Andrew Chatora's Where the Heart Is, intensely provocative, and that's like a review from Memory Chwere from the University of Zimbabwe. So let's get into the video. I think you can tell by the sound of my voice I had a terrible cold last week. That's why I couldn't do a video, but I'll try to talk as much as I can and take time to breathe, because I think I'm running out of breath very quickly. But we move. So, as always, I always pick topics which resonate with me, which provoke me, or which I find quite interesting. And number one, it has to be black tax. So one thing I've seen from Andrew Chatora's books is he will write about black tax. You know, his last book, he also touched on that subject of black tax, and it is real. When you move to the diaspora, wherever you go, people back home are going to expect money, and there's nothing wrong with helping people. But in Fari's case, I think he exceeded. Like, it ended up taking a major toll on his marriage, even though when we start the book, his marriage is already on the brink of collapsing. So, but you can tell that how much that actually led to the breaking down of his marriage, because his wife was coming from the sense that, it's okay to help people, but you can't give them money every single time they ask. Because Fari, he was a good guy, he wanted to be, that guy who does not forget where he comes from, that kind of thing of, taking care of his own, taking care of his family. He's expected to do the certain things. But when we start like the book at his funeral, you see how that actually ended up being like part of his major downfall, because none of those people he helped came to his funeral. His family was not there. He barely had any friends at the funeral. I think only his daughter is the one who showed up, and his cousin, who was actually like narrating the first chapter of the book. Excuse me. So that black tax, it really was like very evident. And there was actually a very interesting conversation which they were having, like there was Ben and Taurai were the neighbors, and they were talking about, you know, this whole thing of black tax. And Fari was the only one who was on the notion that, you know, you're supposed to help these people, they're your family. But then the other three, they were like, okay, it's fine for you to help people, but you know, at some point you need to know when to stop. You know, you can't be like every time something comes up you have to like fork out money, because you also have to think of yourself, you have to think of your kids, you have to think of also your luxuries, you know, and also like some of the things you might need. And then there also came the topic of you know, there was also like, oh, you know, emotional manipulation when it comes to like people who in the back home, when they want something, they'll be like, oh, you know, one day it's going to be you, you're going to be needing money and stuff. And I think so many people have had that used on them, like one day it's going to be you. That's very common when it comes to Zimbabwean. I'm talking from a Zimbabwean point of view. That's very common. Like if you say, oh, I can't help, they'll be like, oh, one day it's going to be you, you're also going to need this kind of help. I'm like, I know that, but I don't have it, you know. And I think that's one thing with Fari, because he was so much was expected of him. I think in his family was the first person to come to the diaspora, so you can imagine the pressure, and also him wanting to please people. But as time goes, you kind of see like where exactly he was coming from and why he ended up doing all these things that he was doing. So topic number 2, it is about identity crisis and survival mode. So while in the diaspora, people, when they move, they try to find themselves due to different cultures and environments. For example, we had Ben and Taurai. So Fari, because we're reading this from Fari's point of view, so it's a bit biased, obviously. Usually when you're reading, like I found that when you're reading from a character's point of view, it's bound to be biased, because you know they're trying to make the reader see it from their point of view, so it's quite biased. So Fari, he felt like, you know, Ben and Taurai, they were not Zimbabwean enough, they were not cultured enough, because he thought they were leaning into being white. And he also had qualms with why their kids, their twins, were marrying white people, why they were not, you know, into the Zimbabwean culture, embracing it, you know, all of those things. And these people were trying to understand, to explain to him from their point of view that, you know, when you move here, you kind of have to like immerse yourself in what's going on. And also it's a choice, you know, it doesn't mean if you're enjoying some of the pleasures of this country, it means that you're not black or African enough. But Fari was not having it. Fari was so adamant. I think it's also because the pressure of him wanting to go home, he had made up his mind. So to him, it felt like, sorry, I want you to cough, sorry, he went away. He felt like they were trying to justify like living in the UK. And he even brought up the case of like when people get jobs, you know, in Zimbabwe, they have very high earning jobs. And then when they come here, not high earning jobs, but rather high ranking jobs, like the jobs with the like super big titles. But then when they come here, they kind of have to be on survival mode. So they have to get jobs where they have to survive. Like for example, you might come from Zimbabwe with an accounting degree, PhD, whichever it is. But one thing about this country, it will put its people first. So you have your degree, nothing wrong with that. You apply for the job, yes, that's fine. But in the meantime, whilst you're waiting, you're going to need to survive. And that has caused so many people, because you need to pay rent. Like rent is forever due, okay? Rent is forever due at the end of the month, or whatever you're paying it. It's due and it needs to be paid. Because like Fari was explaining that, you know, life in the UK is a matter of just working, eating bills, which is very true. If you're not working, you're eating, you're sleeping, and you're paying bills, because like bills here, I think they take like 99% of people's wages and stuff. So he was saying he was so tired of that kind of life. He just wanted to go back home and, you know, maybe go back to being like a lecturer, because he used to be a lecturer at a Zimbabwean college. So it is Zimbabwean university, sorry. So he was like, you know what, I'm going to restart my life. I'm going to go back. I'm going to start on a new chapter in my old book. And then he was very set on that, and also he didn't like his neighbors, and also he thought like his wife was also like siding with his neighbors, saying, oh, you know, why didn't you support me and stuff. And then his wife, my day, was like, you know, I also have a mind of my own, you know, I'm able to like make my own decisions. So I think him being so frustrated with everything, he was projecting, because I feel like the most part of this book, this guy was literally projecting. Most of the time in the book he was projecting. So there was also Ben and Taure versus Fari, who felt they were not rooted and easily swayed because he missed and wanted to go home. Also, the reality of being an immigrant, settling for jobs that pay bills rather than pursue intended careers, and leaving dignified jobs back home to do less enticing jobs in the diaspora. Fari's sense of identity was weighing him down. So I feel like Fari, he was out of touch with what exactly was going on in Zimbabwe, because he was a visitor. So you know, coming and going, you thought, you know what, I don't think the life in Zimbabwe is that hard. I'll just go back, start my life and move things along. And I tell you what, that is exactly what did not happen. It was the complete opposite. Which brings us to the next topic. So theme number 3, it is family dynamics and relationships. So at the beginning of the book, as I mentioned before, it's Fari's funeral, and we get to understand that none of his family are there. I think only his daughter Yokai is there. But then we kind of get to understand, as you read the book, you understand the family dynamics, which were very messed up. Like Fari, he was, like I said, he was a typical Zimbabwean man. You know, he wanted to be obeyed. What he said had to go. Like the way he was talking to his wife, I don't know if that was exactly how he was. No, well, according to my day, that's not how he was. He changed over time, but the way that he was just pushing around until my day got a voice of her own. Sorry, that cough was coming back again. Until my day got a voice of her own, and she started speaking up for herself. So even by that time, their marriage was just like, it was pretty much over. And also, as we got to read more, Fari's relationship with his daughter. So out of all his family, he loved his daughter Yewu. She's the one who ended up taking care of him when he had cancer, when he came back to the UK. Because from the book, he actually died from cancer, and then he didn't want to come back to Zim. He didn't want to come back to the UK. He ended up like meeting up with this like witch doctor, who ended up giving him something that made him even more sick. So he ended up having to come back to the UK, and then went to a hospice. From there, then he started staying with his daughter Yewu, who was taking care of them, but they didn't really have a proper like lovey-dovey relationship, because this, as it said in the synopsis, she was bed hopping. I really don't think she was bed hopping, but you know what, that's not my book. I can't say that. I really feel like I don't feel like she was bed hopping. She was just, you know, she got pregnant twice, but I don't think it was because she was bed hopping, you know. But anyway, it's not my story to tell. That's just my my review. And he did not have a great relationship with his son, so he was not happy that his son was gay. And even when he died, his son never showed up. So we only see a glimpse of Muchi, who is the son. I think he only has like 3 chapters at the end of the book. We just know like what he went through, but he never really came back to his father's life after he was like thrown out on his 18th birthday when he came out. No, it was it the 18th birthday, or was it over Christmas? Somewhere around the time, but there's like the age 18 in Christmas there. And he was thrown out, and then there was like a huge saga because he ended up dating like this TV anchor. And then, you know, the UK tabloids did what the UK tabloids are known of doing. And from then onwards, we don't really, even like when the mother or the sister is talking, we don't really get to know more about Muchi, which I really felt like I wanted to know more about him. I know like he wanted a father figure, but you know, with his dad being a typical Zimbabwean man, he knew that was never going to happen. So he just stayed away in London where he was staying. I think he didn't even know what exactly was going on with his dad. And we didn't really get to know, understand the relationship between his Muchi and Yewu. We just know that they were siblings. I feel like, you know, when stories with certain family dynamics, you kind of need to include them, because I felt like when he was writing this book, I felt like Muchi was forgotten. Then he was like, oh yeah, there's Muchi, after like a few chapters at the end. But I feel like, you know, books which kind of like revolve around families, you kind of need to like include all of them. So I wish I'd known more, or would you know, we'd seen the family together, to really more scenes of the family together, to kind of really like have that, you know, the sense of how deep, like, you know, the hatred was. And then the mom, she did not have a good relationship with the daughter, and Yewu, she really resented her mom, because I think like Yewu, that's the daughter Yewu, she ended up like mirroring both her parents, in the sense that, you know, she ended up dating someone way older than him, which was what her mom, the opposite of what her mom was doing. She was dating someone way younger than her. And then also her dad, in the sense that, you know, they dated people who wanted like papers from them. So it was kind of like, you know, she was mirroring her parents, and it really took a toll on her, because, you know, she was the one who was trying to like, you know, being the strong one in the family. And she loved her dad, and also Fari really loved his daughter, but, you know, there was also that, him being a typical African man, seeing that his daughter has had 2 kids with different men, you know, it was kind of like a disgrace and all of that. And Fari's marriage, and how from the start you could tell that the marriage was about to collapse. Also how his wife and family were affected by the black tax. Fari gaslighting his wife when confronted about black tax, and learning boundaries, and how relatives and families emotionally manipulate in order to get money. So these were some of the topics which are covered under the family dynamics and the relationship. So number 4 will be marital issues and infidelity. So both Maide and Fari, they cheated in their marriage. So when Fari finally decided to go back to Zimbabwe, he did not talk to his wife for the 8 years that he was there. So I don't think there was still a marriage there. So my day was like, you know what, I'm going to move on with my life. But I feel like the way that she was described, it was like, oh, this woman, how dare she does that. But I think there was also, I kind of felt for my day, because, you know, she had always gone with what Fari wanted, or except for like the mortgage and stuff. You know, there was that issue. But I also felt like, you know, she was also like finding herself, because she ended up like dating this gym instructor. She ended up dying though from an overdose because of that. But I felt like, you know, she had finally come to the sense of like, you know, having her own thing, doing her own thing. And then when Fari is talking about his affair with Liz, it's like justified, you know. It's like, you know, I was here, what's her name, Liz, you know, they were all, I think they dated like way back in the day. And then when he came back to Zimbabwe, they were like literally like living together whilst he was still married back home. And then he was like, you know what, I can't, he was saying he was still married, so he can't fully commit to Liz. Liz was like, you know what, it's fine. But then he got cancer whilst he was in Zimbabwe, so like Liz had to fully step up his full-on wife. Then this guy comes back to England, ghosts Liz, never talks to her again. He was like, you know what, I think when I left, it was so clear that, you know, there was nothing that was going to go on after this woman is taking care of him. Which is why I feel like Fari never took accountability of anything that he did. Everything to him was justified. You know, it was, I don't think he ever admitted to being like unreasonable in what he did. But that's the thing, it was in first person, so it's bound to be biased. Even with my day, what I'm saying that, you know, she had taken time to do all this, it was also in first person, so there's a chance of it also being biased. And then we only know like my day felt out of touch with her husband and decided to have a side, and so did Fari when he went back to Zimbabwe. Though they had grown apart, my day still missed her husband and wanted his attention. So these people, they'd been married for so long, so there was still that yearning of, you know, missing her husband sometimes, wanting him. And she was also reminiscing of back in the day when they used to be like so close, when they used to be in love, you know, when they used to go to places together, how they used to love football together and all of those things, all those moments they used to share. but as we got introduced to them when they were like on the brink of the marriage collapsing, it was, you know, you could see that she was yearning for that. On Fari's end, it was more from a place of complaining, if I should say. I wouldn't say you really reminisce. It was just like, you know, she was not understanding all of that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I just failed to like feel bad for Fari in a way. I think it's the lack of accountability, but that's just me. So when Fari comes back, he ends up being meeting another lady, Letty, who also has like her own goals. You know, she's on a mission. She's on a mission. There's a reason why she's with Fari, and Fari is like not even aware of that. So when he comes back and he comes out of the hospital, Letty is like his physiotherapist. So she helps him through, but in helping him, she's also like on the lookout of what exactly she can get from Fari. And as time goes on, we get to know why Letty is being very friendly, because she ends up inviting him for like a dinner, like a meal. And then when he gets there, she's like, oh, you know, do you still have your wife? Blah, 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 blah. And then Fari falls for it. They end up sleeping together. And then she's like, you know what? I think it's good if you move in with me. And then from there, we kind of see why Letty's actual name is Pat. I think it's like Fatima, and we get to know that, you know, she just wants a man with the British papers, and you get to understand more. That was, I think that for me was very interesting. I really liked that part because you never really saw it coming. For me, I was like, oh, okay, there's this Letty, and then when you get to know Letty's story, I was like, okay, this was actually very good. So another topic which came out was like medical issues, and most people, like most African people who I have experienced myself, they rarely go for checkups. Like I remember this girl was like, you go for checkups? I was like, yeah, I do go for like medical checkups, like maybe like once every 6 months, you know, just general checkups. It's like, what? I've never had one before. So when it comes to medical checkups, like not going for checkups and not having medical aid, an African mentality of sleeping things off. So like there's just this notion of like, if you get sick, just go and sleep, it'll go away. But when it came to Fari's condition, that was not the case. He actually had prostate cancer, so he could not sleep it off. If he slept, probably he would die, you know. So that's when he ended up like finding this witch doctor who ended up messing up his system, because he couldn't pay the $30,000 that was needed because he didn't have medical aid. So he had to like pay $30,000, and he didn't have that money because when he went back to Zimbabwe, he thought he was going to have his business. He kind of worked for like a few months, and then afterwards everything started collapsing. So he literally did not have any money. He literally went back to zero. He didn't have any savings back in the UK, so he didn't have money, didn't have anyone to ask for money. And I think he felt like his ego was like, no, there's no way I'm going to talk to my day and tell her, you know, that I have cancer, after he just left. You know, he literally just upped and went, and he never looked back. And it actually showed that, you know, you never really think of these things. You know, there's not a day when you're like, you know what, maybe I'll get cancer. This is some of the things that you never think of. And I think in Fari's, this was like the major thing he never saw coming, because he had his plan, he had everything going on for him, so he thought. And then everything just started going downhill all at once. Like the business stopped. Like his cousin, he ended up leaving the job because he had to go somewhere. And then there was also him now getting sick because of the cancer, and now he was opting for other means to get well. He went to that guy. Apparently that witch doctor was known for giving people like things that ended up making the cancers worse. So from then onwards, he really had to go back to the UK, where he did not want to go. But because he didn't want to die, obviously he had to go. So it kind of like shed a light on how, when it comes to medical issues, some of these things you never really see coming. But that really changed the course of Fari's life. So the next one is human trafficking. So I won't lie, I was like what I'm saying, like for me, the story for Letty was the one which really like got me into this. I was like, okay, this is actually very good. Letty or Fatima, as I said before, the woman who ended up wanting to like get him, marry him, or be with him because of his papers, she was actually trafficked into the UK. And I think if you read like the newspapers, or if you've heard, like, I think it was like 2 years or a year ago, when they found like a big truck where they found like 35 people from I think it was the Philippines, was it Vietnam or the Philippines, I'm not really sure, but they were all dead. And this is exactly how Fatima came to the UK. So we get to know more about Fatima, and she talks about like, you know, how in London they actually have like these circles where they traffic people and then they use them for prostitution, kids as young as like 14, 15, and then they're brought into the UK, their passports are taken, and then, you know, they're literally slaves. So Fatima, she had a chance to run away. She ran away, and then she became an illegal immigrant. Then she met this Zimbabwean lawyer who helped her to get like a passport, a fake passport, a fake name, so that she wouldn't be found by this gangster who was trafficking her, who was responsible for trafficking her, because obviously he was going to look for her. And then she gets like a fake passport, a fake identity. She gets like a new job, like she's working at a bank in Halifax. Everything seems to be going well for her life. And then when the passport expires, she goes back to the guy now who used to be able to help people to get these things. He's fallen, okay? He's no longer in the same place. So he ends up like getting a fake papers, but she's not getting these things for free. She has to pay like £5,000 to cover for everything that she's doing, which means she's now paying for the mortgage, she's paying for that £5,000. She also has her own thing, so she's literally like all the money she's getting, she's paying to someone else. And then that Zimbabwean lawyer ends up getting her like papers, fake papers, to say that she's a physiotherapist. She's never worked in that area before. That's how she ended up meeting Fari. And then we get to know that, you know, she's used another man before for her to get out of the ring of the trafficking ring. And then when she got out, she started her own life. And then when she saw Fari, because now her passport had expired and she had submitted like an application to the Home Office, so she was like she'd applied for asylum. She was like, you know what, I think maybe if I get Fari. And Fari was like really smitten. He was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it, my age, I think it was like in his 60s now. It was like, at my age, I can't believe I finally got someone who's actually interested in me. And he ended up falling for it. He fell for it. And then I was so shocked that he did not end up succeeding in that, because at the end we kind of see like emails. She was deported. She ended up being deported, and she was talking to Fari saying, you know, I'm sorry, you know, I ended up being deported, and you know, I really loved you. I was like, I really doubted that she really loved him for him. I think like, you know, it was just to get the things and stuff. And then Fari was like, oh, you know, just like it's very unfair the way that they took you out. So what I really, as much as like Fari is like biased in some ways, some of the things that it brings up, they're very important. Like I really liked the writing when the writing about the trafficking. I liked how he talked about like the immigration in this country, how, you know, like the way that they knew that she was in danger, but they were like, you know what, you're not from here, go away. So I really liked like those statements that Fari was talking about, like bringing up, that really made you think like, okay, you know, these are very important things that are actually happening in this country that really need to be addressed. And then whilst they're exchanging those emails, Fari ends up dying. And then the last email is to Fari from Pat, and she's just telling him that, you know, I'm so sorry that you died. Not sorry that you died, but I think she was sending the message from closure, also because she felt bad for what she did to him, and also because you know, I think it was because she felt bad for what she did to him, but also because I think in her own way she'd also had a relationship with him. So these are some of the topics that really stood out for me. And overall, I think this book, it really is more for a mature audience, in the sense that, okay, when it came to like these different people talking, right, I didn't find like the difference between Fari talking or Yokai talking. They kind of had like the same vocabulary, which is quite hard because, you know, you're writing for someone who's 20 and someone who's like 60. I feel like maybe the author would have done more to show the difference, because I know like people are different, but you know, you kind of need to like bring out the youthness in someone talking. For example, I found that my day and Yokai, they kind of talk the same. Like they would say, my day would also say to Fari, "Oh, hi handsome," and then Ye would always say to Alex, who was I think the first boyfriend she had, or was it the second one? The first one, I think. She would also say, "Hi handsome." So, you know, you'd be like a bit taken back. I think the author would have done more if he had used like different pet names, and also like being a bit more careful when it comes to like voicing different characters, especially from different generations and who have different ages, different likes, different all of that. So, but all in all, I think I'll give this book like a 3 out of 5. And also something that was very interesting when it comes to Andrew Chatora, I think I always say this, like, you write deep English, like you probably need a dictionary and a thesaurus to know to look up some of these words. That's a very Zimbabwean thing, and I think I made fun of him for that, because, you know, Zimbabweans, they will make you look up words. I think we have that thing of like using like these synonyms and stuff, which there's nothing wrong about that, but I was like, you know what, that's a Zimbabwe. Like, I think if I'm to read a book and I don't know who the author is or where they come from, I think if I had read this without knowing who the author was, I would have known this was a Zimbabwean. So it was very funny for me, you know, that I'm able, or most of us are able, to pick out like Zimbabwean writers because we like this rich vocabulary and all. So thank you so much, you guys, for watching this video. I feel so bad, like I'm so out of breath at the moment, but I'm still recovering, and I hope to see you next time. And this book is actually available on Amazon. I'll make sure to like tag it and support Zimbabwean writers. You know, we're doing our best writing stories for different age groups, from different, you know, points of view. They don't only resonate with the Zimbabweans, but I think this book, especially the theme, or rather the genre that Andrew writes, I think it resonates with a lot of people in the diaspora, not only Zimbabweans, but I think he has a wider audience when it comes to that, because he does like cover like very important topics. So thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye.